Thank you so much, sir. Now, to continue and start the plenary session on democratizing the future of farming, desirable pathways, I would like to take an opportunity to welcome and request Dr. Ashok Dalwai, sir, for the session. Please, sir.
Good morning once again, and you just heard me, and I hope I don't bore you. As we were chatting down there, I realized that Professor Sahasar Buddhe and me come from the same place, studied in the same place at least, one in the engineering and another in the agriculture university. And I was very happy to listen to Bhunesh, who gave his personal experiences. And he understands so much of agriculture from the perspective of a practicing farmer as well as a policy maker. Very impressed, actually. So, thank you very much for giving me this another opportunity of talking about democratization of the future of farming. It's a very high pedestal topic, but of extreme relevance to the most common man. We all know the definition of democracy. India's constitution weds India to democratic norms. And when we talk about democracy, it cannot happen without all the fundamental rights and the directive principles as enshrined in the India's constitution, one of the best in the world. And the basic feature of that is that it is of the people, for the people, and by the people. And that is strengthened by three very important words that they say came to us from the modern Europe in the 17th century. And those three are justice, liberty, and equality. So there has to be justice. Without that, you can't have democracy. There has to be liberty. Without that, you can't have democracy. You need to have equality, equality of opportunities, and equality before law. So these constitute the essence of democracy as it applies to civilization, as it applies to economy, as it applies to society. And here, relating to agriculture, agriculture, I would say, is not just economy, it is society. Hence, democracy becomes that much more relevant when we talk about democratization of the farming as a future pathway. To share my thoughts, or to, as I say, make loud thinking, I can trace three broad stages through this evolution of agriculture. As I say, agriculture, settled agriculture began with domestication of some animals and identification of certain seeds as man went through hunting and gathering, where he could husband them 12,000 years ago. And of the identity of Earth, one hotspot belongs to us, means India. We must be proud of that. It was, of course, began, but then later research has shown that it was across the Indo-Gangetic plain, including the can, as a positive response to the challenges that we face, we can Sai Baba's abode is located, was the first place where we had that kind of a movement. And we are also aware that thereafter we have had Champaran movement, we have had the movement led by Gandhiji himself in Gujarat. So all these things, and the first regulation of post-harvest or marketing, and thereafter we have had produce marketing cooperatives. So the cooperatives and regulation have gone together, and the history is 100 years, more than 100 years by now. The purpose of telling this to you is that from a free trade or a free production system in the last 200 years, we have come to a regulated environment. And now, once again, we're talking about liberalization. So these are the broad three stages. When you have a total free trade, it can amount to laissez faire, as they say in economics. That means there's absolutely no regulation, no control, no facilitation, no promotion. Might becomes right. In an unstructured society, that laissez faire is also not good because it is the powerful alone who will start then benefiting from it. We always need for an equitable society to provide support to the weaker man. And always weaker people are larger in number, including as we see in America today. So much of discrimination between two classes of society. So today, we have had too much of regulation, and therefore we are talking of liberalization. Not a laissez-faire, but what is called promotional and facilitative environment. So why is it required? It is required because farmers as enterprise, then they need to have a freedom to choose what they want to grow. They need a freedom to sell where they want to sell. They need to have freedom to buy the kind of inputs they want to buy. Because agriculture as an enterprise involves production, involves inputs, involves sale. What has happened over the last few decades? Post independence, on the production side and the post production side, because it's too complex and too vast, I'll just take a few examples to tell you how we have had kind of a regulation or control rather than regulation. On the production side, when we're having a food deficit and we brought in a new technology called green revolution technology, the green revolution technology, in order to overcome the food deficiency, was revolving around two crops primarily, wheat and paddy. Why these two crops? Because we didn't have our own technology, we borrowed that technology. The new wheat varieties of wheat came from Mexico, and new rice varieties came from Philippines, IRI. Simit of Mexico and IRI of Philippines. Now both these varieties are available in In fact, APMCs became the new zamindars. We had the old zamindars who owned land, and through series of revenue reforms, this country actually disengaged from that usurious system. But APMCs became the new zamindars. How did that happen? The state APMC Act said that the farmer cannot sell outside the APMC. The jurisdiction of the APMC was all the area that was notified under the Act by the APMC. Let us say if a particular district had one APMC, that entire district was a notified area. So wherever you produced, you still have to go and sell at the APMC, which meant that if you are selling outside, you could be penalized. And that was the system. So on when we have this kind of system that you go and sell at a particular place and you don't have any other opportunity, then there is cartelization. These aratiyas that our young officer was talking about meant that he alone could dictate the prices. Though the APMC Act said that we can have a system of auction, if you go to any APMC, you will know what kind of cartelization happens, how the price is predetermined, how these four or five or six or seven aratiyas they get together, how under the cover they actually fix the price. You can literally go and see that happen. So that means the farmers did not have any kind of a freedom to get a proper competitive price. And third issue is credit. Once again, you are talking, Bhuvanesh, about Aranthiyas. Farmers need investment at production stage, at the post-production stage. And I told you in the morning lecture that the savings are so small that he cannot have any withholding capacity. When do I convert my produce into proper value? When I can say no to somebody when I'm not happy with that price. But here the farmer doesn't have that capacity. And more importantly, his commodity is perishable. If the commodity is perishable and he has no capacity to say no, then what does he do? He says yes, whatever the money comes. So these three important things: financial power, the ability to produce what you want, and the ability to sell the way you want will determine whether India's agriculture is democratic or not. And what has happened in the last few decades is was maybe inevitable, but what it has turned out to be, it has non-democratized the system. So today, when we are talking about the future, where I told you that we need an income-centric agriculture and welfare-centric farmers' future, we need to create that new conducive environment through new policy framework. How do we give that opportunity to the farmers to produce what they want? Yes, the farmer is bound to grow in sync with the agroecology. That is called sustainability. Today, if the farmers of Maharashtra are growing sugarcane in the western parts of the state, if North Karnataka farmers are growing sugarcane, or the farmers of Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, Odisha, West Bengal are growing their paddy on the uplands, they are all not being in sync with the agroecology. But they are still doing it. The reason is they know that only when I grow these crops, I get some money. If I don't grow sugarcane, I don't get money. If I don't grow paddy, I don't get money. Because the policy says I'll give you money for paddy or wheat through MSP and procurement. I have a sugar factory and therefore the sugar factory will buy my sugarcane. Agroecology says grow jawar, grow braja, grow pulses, grow oil seeds. But where is the money on that? So which means that we have not created a policy environment where the farmer sticks to agroecology and still gets the money. We'll be being unfair to the farmer if I tell him, or if we all tell him, be agroecologically sound, which means that you sacrifice your economics for the larger ecology of the society. Why should that happen? Yes, there is individual interest, collective interest. If the society wants to promote collective interest, then the policy instrument has to be such that yes, you grow jawar or bajra, even if you get lesser money compared to sugarcane farmer, cotton farmer, paddy farmer, I will compensate you through my instrument. So that is ecological compensation. So this is how Society ensures that fair, just, and equitable opportunities created for the farmers to produce not just what he wants, but what society needs. So that is the first thing that I want to say. If that is to happen, we need technology. And technology will help us in forecasting the demand, forecasting the prices, forecasting the pest status, forecasting the disease status, forecasting the weather status. And we feed the farmer with these forecast predictable options, and therefore farmer is able to act in advance and reduce the probability of loss of produce as well as incomes. So that is the first one. The second one I was talking to you is about the post harvest. Yes, he has produced because he has now adopted good technology, good agronomic practices, etc. But is he able to convert all that into money? We always talk about marketing efficiency. That means we need a good competitive market where the farmers are able to opt for alternate channels. I either go to APMC or I sell outside. I opt for the digital platform, direct trade platform, which the government of India intended to bring through the new law. That means we provide him options, not just one monopoly, but a system where alternate channels are available. So we need a policy that will enable the farmers to exercise alternate channels. Today it is not there. So if we need have those alternate channels, and it can work provided we are able to create one nation, one market. Why? Today we are talking that there are surpluses. Why is it surplus? If the Kolar farmers in Karnataka grows tomatoes, he is selling for 25 paise a kilo, whereas the Delhi consumer is paying 40 rupees, 50 rupees, 100 rupees. What does this mean? Within the same country called India, the tomato farmer of Kolar is not able to reach out his tomatoes to Delhi. So there's no one nation, one market. If we create a system where the farmer of Kolar is able to transport his tomatoes to the Delhi consumer, then here the consumers benefit, there the farmers will benefit. For that, we need good agri logistics. Somebody to collect that, somebody to pack house it, somebody to transport it via the reefer vans, some distribution system here. So we need all that thing. We need post harvest management, which includes agri logistics, which includes processing, which includes the marketing system. We don't have that system. So we need to bring all those things through democratization. And that will mean democratization. And I was talking to you about the wastage that is happening. The wastage of food that is happening on this earth, if it is considered as a country, it will be number three after China and USA. The quantum of carbon dioxide equivalent that is generated by decomposition of the food that is not reaching the consumer is so high, and so much of contribution to the greenhouse gas, that it would be considered as number three country in the ranking. In India, it is assessed that we have a wastage from 4.6% to 20%, depending upon the commodity. If it is pulses, one thing, grains, one thing, meat is something else. So, why are we producing that? To waste it? So, how do we consume all that we want to produce? So, once again, we need a digital technology. We need proper technology, proper systems. Then the farmer is using less resources because he's producing only to feed or to sell. So, what we need is a new system at the post harvest management, which will help in bringing democratization. And the third pillar I was talking to you about, institutional credit. Credit is very important. The recent survey by NABARD in 2015-16 showed that even today, 30% of people alone have access to institutional credit. Of course, in the last 5 years, thanks to the initiatives of the government, where the volume of credit available for crop production has increased from 8.5 lakh crore in 2015-16 to 16.5 lakh crore by now, has actually pushed up the access of the people or the farmers to institutional credit through banks, through cooperatives, etc. Nevertheless, Even today, large number of people depend upon non-institutional credit, where the interest rates are very high. So the strike of the farmers that we saw in 1874 in Ahmednagar, that objective has not yet been fulfilled in 2021. So I hope we don't have to wait for 2074 to say that we have done it. Okay. So we need to increase the access of the farmers to institutional credit so that he is disengaged from the usurious money lending. But mind you, access to credit only at the production stage is not enough. We need institutional credit for investments for capital generation. We need institutional credit to manage the post harvest. So, when we talk about institutional credit for capital formation, our committee, for example, has worked out what is the growth rate that is required to increase the investments in agriculture to achieve a particular growth rate in income. It is pretty high. So, how do we make available the, the money to the farmers for investments on his farm? For example, to develop his land, to buy machinery, to improve his irrigation systems, or to improve his harvesting systems. There are so many things where he needs to make investments. If he doesn't have that money, where does he get it? He doesn't have the capacity to borrow elsewhere because interest rates are too high. So we need that system where farmers are able to get that access. And similarly, at the post harvest, yes, have grown, but the markets, agriculture markets, are highly uh, dysfunctional in the sense there's nothing called perfect market. There's nothing called perfect market in any domain, much less in agriculture, because demand and supply cannot be controlled. Supply, particularly, which is biological in nature in agriculture, cannot be controlled. Once I have sown, I have no control. At least in car making, if there's no demand, I can stop the line. But I can't do it in agriculture. So, supply will be there. It is an Hobson's choice. So, what we therefore need is help the farmers to store their commodity after it is harvested till such time as the market situations improve. That is called strengthening the farmer through the warehouse receipt system. Otherwise, there's a distress sale. So, if there's a distress sale, there is no exercise of free will. I don't want to sell it to you, but I'm forced to sell because I have no option. So there's no democracy. So we need to strengthen that warehouse receipt system. So in short, what we find is that India's agriculture has to move forward where we create a policy. Thereby, the farmer is able to exercise or is provided help in producing what he wants to produce, but he does not lose. System, they were able to absorb more and more people, as happened in the Western society. But today, in the world, including India, where the emerging technologies, including artificial intelligence, big data analytics, robots, geospatial technology, they are disruptive. But we are not sure whether, while being disruptive, they will also be able to generate alternate employment opportunities as computers did in 70s or 80s or 90s. We're not sure because they are normally seen to be labor substituting. If that is the story, and if we have too much of population in India, then we will be industrializing, we will be increasing our service sector, but we will not be able to generate employment at the same rate as our population has increased and will increase. So we will have to generate more employment opportunities in agriculture. And therefore, we need to move agriculture as a new opportunity for feeding the bioeconomy. I want to repeat that. So far, we have based our entire industrial economy on coal, iron ore, bauxite, copper, etc., etc. When those resources are getting exhausted, another 1,000 years, 2,000 years. So we need to now use renewable sources that we generated. So new technology has to be applied to produce new kind of bioenzymes, for example, not chemical-based enzymes, but biologically generated enzymes. That kind of resource, that kind of processing has to happen. In India, still we're at a very infant stage of non-food processing. Food processing also is still very small, but some steps have been taken. But non-food processing, we are still at a baby stage. So new science, new industrial processing will have to happen based on agriculture. It's a win-win situation. Good for ecology, good for farmers, good for society. So that's when, once again, we will require a lot of new technology. So the five things that will bring about a paradigm shift and help us democratize, according to me, are: first one is digital technology, which will help us to decide properly our production, resource use, post production. That means we move towards what is called a smart agriculture. Second one is financial technology or fintech, because that will take care of very efficiently transacted delivery of financial resources to the farmers at his doorstep based on certain assessments. And the third one is the nanotechnology. Today we're using so much of resource. Nanotechnology will cut down the use of resources, be it water, be it fertilizers, be it pesticides, any the kind of thing, very drastically, and therefore help in cost saving as also resource saving. The fourth one is the biotechnology. People are still not very happy about biotechnology, but today there's so much of new science that is emerged in biotechnology that we can sort out our ethical issues related to biotechnology. At least there's one component of biotechnology which is genome editing. Normally, biotechnology is seen as interspecies crossing, and therefore people are worried about ethical issues. Like a BT cotton, it's a cross between a faunal world, plant world, and a microbial world. So, society, particularly we in India or Asian countries, are concerned about these ethical issues. But genome editing is something where it's intra-specific. That means within the same species, we make about manipulations of the genes. And America, for example, has even today taken it out of the regulatory system. They say there's no necessity for regulating something which is intra-specific. So maybe biotechnology based on genome editing will be able to give us that kind of a commodity crop or plant or an animal, which will give us high yields by using low resources. Let us say, to substantiate corn, maize, which is one of the common crops, is what is called a C3 plant. Because it is a C3 plant, its conversion efficiency is so high, it can go up to 400 quintals per hectare. 400 quintals. We are still at 27 quintals in India. America has reached 1.2 tons per hectare, 12 tons per hectare. So that means we can go very high up the value by adopting new technologies. That is the new thing I would say will be the paradigm change that it will effect. And the fifth one is the vertical gardening. Vertical gardening consisting of controlled atmospherics, like polyhouses, greenhouses, then the rooftop gardening, the vertical gardening per se, peri-urban agriculture, urban agriculture. So agriculture is brought closer to the people of consumption center. So that is possible because of new technology available to us. And the sixth one is secondary agriculture. Secondary agriculture is nothing but processing-based bioeconomy. We can organize from the micro industries to the high-tech industries. As Mahatma Gandhi said, India lives in its villages. He always advocated for cottage village industries. Those cottage and village industries, based on primary processing, secondary processing of the agriculture produce, can be set up in the rural areas. And digital technology will help us to overcome the challenges of the scales of economy. You may produce in a decentralized manner, but we'll be able to aggregate that produce using digital technology. We'll be able to sell anywhere we want using digital platforms. So today, in 20th century, we thought scales of economy is very important. No. Now we realize scales of economy can be overcome by using digital technology. And this is the sixth platform. So these six things, according to me, will help us in taking agriculture forward, welfare of farmers forward, and create a democratic environment for the farmers of this country and anywhere else, and help us to achieve that constitutional vision of an egalitarian society based on socio-economic equality for everybody. Thank you very much.